Today we're going to be learning how to use with. In this case, at the very end, you'll learn how to make a timer that takes in a certain amount of time, it waits this amount, and then it says how much time it waited. So let's go back to a blank file, and let's just try doing the very basics. So let's just make a class and call it text. And inside of it, we'll have our initialization as per usual, and let's just call it self, and let's have a value here. So basically our text will just have a value, and then we want it to return the value whenever we call it with a with statement. So we'll say self.value is equal to value, and then we'll make a new function, and this is another default Python thing, and we'll call it enter, and self, and all it will return is itself. So that whenever we call a with statement, it'll know what it's referencing. Now we can make one more function, and this is another default Python function, and it'll just take in self, and it also takes in some default arguments that we don't need to worry about, but we'll just say it anyway, and it'll be errors, and we won't actually use this at all, it's just that Python requires it. And then we can say print self.value, and then we can say that we're done. And now that we have all this, we can finally use the with statement. So with text, and we make sure that we put in our value, so that'll just be text file. And we'll say as, so that's how we reference it. That's basically the name. And we'll just say txt. Then we just say print txt.value. And so what this is going to do is it's actually going to print the value twice, because we've got the way that this works is it prints off our value. Well, it doesn't print it, it just makes our value. And then it does enter because we're saying with text file as txt. So whenever we enter something, it does this. And then once we leave this, so we go like this, then it does exit. And now let me just press F5, and you'll see that it says the value, which is text file, then text file, and then done. So that's a really simple way of doing it. But maybe you want to access a JSON file. So I have a little simple JSON file here. All it is just curly brackets. Make sure to use quotation marks, 1, colon, and then some sort of value like hello. You can have anything as long as they're in quotation marks and they're referencing each other using a colon. Then in here, I'm going to delete this class and instead import JSON. And then instead of using a text class, we'll just open up our data.json file as data.json. You can name your JSON file whatever you want as long as it's the same here as it is over here. And now I'll import it as data. And instead of printing our txt value, I'll say data 1. And what this is going to print is it's going to take 1 and say what is the value associated with it, which is low. And you have to make sure to use json.load. So we have to load our data first, and then we can use it. So let's try pressing F5 here. And now it says hello. To be a little bit more precise and easy to read, I'll say data here, or loaded here, and then I can just say loaded 1. Perfect. So that's basically how you load in JSON files. And that's really useful if you have a massive JSON file that you want to access with your Python. Then you can have a huge list of numbers and letters here, and it'll easily be able to associate with the Python. Now let's go to the timer, and let's see if we can understand this. So we're importing time, that's a different thing. Basically, the only things you need to know about time is we've got time.sleep, and we've got time.time. Time.time tells us what time it actually is. So if it's 8 o'clock in your time, then it actually is just saying 8 o'clock. Time.sleep, on the other hand, waits a certain amount of time. So let's say you've got a print function here, and then you've got a print function here. First, it'll print this print function, and then it'll wait 1 second, and then it'll print this print function. So those are the two times that we're using. And then we've got our timer, and our timer has an enter and an exit. If you're not going to use any values like we did in our other class, you don't even need an initialization for this. You can just use an enter and exit. So it'll do self.start equals time.time. So basically, if it's like 7 o'clock, then it'll do that. And then if we wait an hour and then we do the exit, then it'll say, oh, this is 8 o'clock. And it'll say elapsed equals self.end minus self.start, which would be 1 hour there. And I just did this rounding so that we can get it to the 10th decimal area. Now we do enter, right? And then we do this. So it says start the timer, and then it sleeps, and it sleeps for just 1 second, so you won't even be really to tell. So I'll just say 5 seconds, so it's a little easier to know what's happening. And then we'll have self.end, and then it'll print the elapsed amount of time. So let's press F5 and see what this does. It prints start timer now. It waits 5 seconds, and then it says elapsed time is 5 seconds. Perfect, that's exactly what we wanted. And we could even, down here, use time in our own way. We could say t equals 0, and it wouldn't even matter because this is all self-contained within this with system. So that's how you use with in Python. Thanks for watching.